when the team recently came, we went and did a visit to the field. And they were giving testimonies of what the Lord has been doing in the crusades. You know, in Africa, we have what we call crusades. We set up camp, someone will preach in a local language, and then they will show a Jesus film. So this area has been known to be prominent with the worship of idols. And there was one particular tree. This tree signified the existence of a foreign god. If any branch fell, no one picked it up. No one ever jogged near that tree because you only can offer sacrifices and enchantments besides just playing around the tree. That night, when they showed the Jesus film and they did some prayer work and consecrating the land, the following day, the tree fell down. To some, they'll be like, well, the tree fell. It's not a big deal. Trees fall, you know. But to the whole community, that was a sign that that God had been defeated by the God of the gospel who was brought in. And ever since the church plant was made there, the church has been growing exponentially. Young people, children, adults are coming to the light of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this came in after the demonstration of God's power. By that tree falling and people receiving healing and deliverance during the crusades that they have been having after the first crusade they had.
Okay, so recently some members of the Renew team all went on a trip to Kenya. And so these are parts of our team who are sending out Jesus film backpacks to be able to share the gospel, but oftentimes they're working in an office. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to give them an opportunity to actually go to the field and to do the stuff that they're helping mobilize hundreds of missionaries to do. So we teamed up with our Africa Hub general manager, Ken Bahati, over in Kenya. And then he took us out into a remote part of Kenya where he has a lot of history doing ministry. We set up the projector to show a film to these newer Christians, and they'd all watched the Jesus film many more times than most people have, maybe more times than I have. And so instead of showing something like that, we decided to show this film called Walking with Jesus.
Which is still Jesus Films content.
Made by the same people, but it's almost like a telenovela. Or like a Nollywood film, it's like an African mini-series that walks through all of these unique challenges that people in Africa will run into as they're trying to follow Jesus. And so we pulled together a bunch of the new believers and random people in this little village, and we set it up. There's maybe 150-ish people there. And as they start watching these episodes, they're just like heckling the screen and laughing and pointing at things because there's characters. All the characters are supposed to be kind of archetypes of the type of people that they might have in their villages. And so when they have like the chief who's like really mean to everybody, they point at him and they laugh because they like know someone who's like him. And then we finally get to the final episode. And Ken leans over to me and he says, I know that this episode is the most important episode. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, it's because this is the episode where they deal with witchcraft. And I was like, all right. So we're watching this episode, and it's where the witch doctor in this series, and again, it's in their language, not even in Swahili, so we have no idea what's happening as far as the plot, but we're trying to track. But this witch doctor kidnaps one of the characters and is planning on like cursing his family and all this stuff, and the whole crowd goes dead silent. They're not saying anything. Like you could have heard a pin drop, almost like eerie. So like we're watching this like, whoa, what is happening? And Ken later explained to us that, again, these people had been worshiping at like a tree where they worshiped ancestors and demonic spirits and all this stuff for many, many generations. And they've literally only been Christians for less than a year, many of them. And there's still this war that's going on inside the community trying to decide, when we get sick, are we going to still go to the witch doctor and just not tell our pastor or our Christian friends? Or are we going to trust Jesus? And when we're afraid and we think that someone's going to try to hurt us or hurt our family, are we going to go to the witch doctor and have the witch doctor curse them? Or are we going to trust God to protect us? And so as people are watching this kind of showdown between dark and light in this Walking with Jesus series, they're like coming to this realization of needing to make this choice. And so we were able to like preach that message of surrender afterwards and invite people into a response to fully trust God as the person who can protect them and save them, and not having to rely on the evil, demons and snake spirits and all this stuff that they were trusting in the past for salvation.
So this just shows how important follow-up and discipleship is then, because you guys would have no idea that there was that there was still all of this going on in the village, where for many people, I feel like that example of when they're all there watching the Walking with Jesus, it was like exposing stuff in their hearts where they had not made the decision that like, I'm going to follow Jesus 100% and I'm renouncing all witchcraft. Like it exposed, like there's still a lot of people who have not really made that decision in their heart. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Larissa, we were talking about this story earlier, and she mentioned that it's not so much different than the actual decision that we have to make in the West or in whatever culture you come from. You're always leaving a specific practice that you did and that your ancestors did and your community does, and you have to make the decision, is Jesus enough? Is he enough to actually be everything to me so that I don't need to keep a tether to what I was to be able to fill these holes that can't be, satisfied by Jesus?
Yeah, and I think sometimes the enough isn't even a something else. Sometimes it's ourselves. Like, am I going to trust myself? Am I going to try to do it on my own? You know what I mean? The truth is like, I don't care who you are. I think the question consistently is he enough? Like, is Jesus actually enough? Is he worth my worship? Is he worth me not trusting in something else? Is he worth me not trusting in myself? And so, the thing that I love though about what you're like, just this whole thing about the Walking with Jesus series, which I think is so amazing because it's so contextualized. I think that contextualized in our own culture, it would look very different, but it would be the same question, right? But the thing that I really love is that God is so, I don't know what it would be. I mean, he's so a lot of things, but like, he's so amazing that he would meet them right where they were. You know what I'm saying? Like that they had just saw the power of God take down their God. You know what I'm saying? And so the fact that he knows what they're wrestling with, I just think that that's so amazing. Like that he like, you guys might have been, I don't know what your decision making was of like, we're gonna show Walking. Maybe it was just because they'd already seen the Jesus film so many times.
It's like, well, we gotta show something.
Yeah, it's like we might as well, right?
Yeah.
But I just see his sovereignty in the decision. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't, I mean, maybe you did, but you didn't know what the last episode was, and that it was.
think
the
a big
Lord went
piece was,
right to the root issue.
That was kind of Ken being sneaky, because Ken understands this
Shout
region, because he actually used to travel into these same areas to do children's ministry when he was in college, and so he understands the thing that people are walking through, which is why actually doing missions with close culture individuals is so critical, because he actually knew, no, this is their struggle, this is what they need, let's meet them in that place. While we were actually kind of talking through this story, it reminded us of that story in the Old Testament. Is it in the book of Samuel?
Yeah, I think it's 3.
First Samuel, yeah.
When the Ark of the Covenant was taken from the Israelites, and the enemies of God bring it into this temple, and they put it in front of their God, and then
Dagon,
yeah.
the statue,
this statue, it snaps and it breaks, and they keep on trying to put it up, and it falls down again. And
every night it falls down in front of the ark.
And then they wouldn't even walk on the threshold of their temples out of memory for how his head broke off and all of his hands broke off and were resting on the threshold. And so in this community, that was kind of this tree was kind of their version of that, like their Asherah pole, their high place. And when the power of God came in, it broke down. But still, I think that's usually the story that gets told in missions, but we sometimes miss that next step, which is even when that happens, people are still people, and they still need intentional disciplers and individuals to come and continue to invite people into that story of surrender, so that it isn't just a one-time thing, but it's something where people every single day die to themselves and by faith accept the new life that Jesus came and promised.